In the quiet corners of history, there exist mysteries that baffle the mind, defy logic, and remain unsolved despite centuries of study. One such enigma is an old book wrapped in a cover of worn vellum, filled with cryptic writing and illustrations that seem to belong to a world that never was. It has no title, no known author, and most perplexingly, no one has ever been able to read it. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a book that has whispered its secrets to no one for over 600 years. Its discovery dates back to 1912, when a Polish-American rare book dealer named Wilfred Voynich stumbled upon the manuscript in the library of a Jesuit college near Rome. The moment he opened its cover, he was captivated. The pages were filled with looping, elegant script, unlike any language he had ever seen. Interspersed among the text were bizarre drawings, unfamiliar plants, astronomical diagrams, strange nude figures bathing in green pools connected by complex plumbing systems. Wilfred was both confused and fascinated. He believed he had found something extraordinary, something lost to time. Wilfred took the manuscript back with him to London, certain it was a scientific or alchemical text from the Middle Ages, perhaps, even written by the famous philosopher Roger Bacon. But the longer he examined it, the more baffled he became. He sent copies of its pages to language experts, codebreakers, and historians. No one could make sense of the script. Some thought it was an elaborate hoax. Others believed it held ancient secrets, waiting to be unlocked. But the manuscript remained silent as years passed. The mystery deepened. The vellum pages were carbon-dated and found to be from the early 15th century, between 1404 and 1438. That ruled out the possibility of a modern forgery. But even with this clue, scholars could not agree on where it had come from or who might have written it. The manuscript passed from hand to hand, studied by cryptanalysts during both world wars, scrutinized by computers in the 20th century, and yet it defied every attempt to decode it. Each page seemed to taunt its readers. The language, if it was a language, had patterns, rhythms, and repetitions that resembled real speech, yet no one could identify its roots. Was it a code? A forgotten tongue? An invented language with no meaning at all? The illustrations offered no help. Some plants looked almost real, but none could be matched to known species. The naked women seemed involved in some ritual or process, but what exactly they represented remained unclear. Some believed it to be the work of a mad genius. Others thought it was a medieval medical manual for women. A few were convinced it came from an entirely different culture, perhaps one erased by time or hidden in plain sight. And then there were the wild theories that it came from aliens or from Atlantis, or that it was a magic book containing spells and formulas beyond human understanding. The manuscript contains about 240 pages, though some are missing. It's divided, roughly into sections: herbal, astronomical, biological, cosmological, pharmaceutical, and recipes. Each section is distinct in its art style and symbols, suggesting a carefully structured purpose behind its creation. And yet, not one word has ever been translated. In the 1960s, the U.S. government even had cryptanalysts from the NSA attempt to crack the Voynich code. These were the same minds who had deciphered military ciphers, but even they could not find a key. The text had no clear breaks, no punctuation, and no familiar patterns of grammar. Still, it did not appear random. It was as if someone had gone to great lengths to construct a coherent system of writing, but one entirely alien to everything we know. Modern computers have analyzed the manuscript's patterns. They've identified statistical features that match natural languages, certain word frequencies, structures, and positional consistencies. But that only deepens the riddle. If it's real language, then who spoke it? And if it's not, why go to such lengths to make it look real? More than a century after Wilfred Voynich found the manuscript, it now rests in Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book Library. It sits in a special case, carefully preserved, studied by thousands of scholars, amateur codebreakers, and conspiracy theorists from around the world. The internet has given it a second life. Scans of its pages are freely available. Forums and websites are dedicated to cracking its code. Yet, like a riddle without an answer, it continues to guard its secrets. The mystery of the Voynich Manuscript is not just about a book. It's about the human desire to understand, to decode, to unravel the unknown. It's a story of obsession, of minds drawn to the inexplicable, unwilling to give up. Some have spent their lives chasing its meaning, only to come away with more questions. The manuscript watches silently, immune to time, resistant to reason. It has become a symbol, not just of mystery, but of something older and deeper, a world before ours, or a world parallel to ours, where the rules of language and logic were written differently. Whether it's a hoax, a forgotten language, or something far stranger, the Voynich Manuscript remains the book that no one can read, but everyone wants to. The deeper one looks into the Voynich Manuscript, the more it begins to feel like a labyrinth without an exit. Every clue bends back on itself. Every theory opens a door to another mystery. After centuries of speculation, the question remains, was the book ever meant to be understood at all? Some of the earliest owners of the manuscript include prominent historical figures, among them Emperor Rudolph II of the Holy Roman Empire, who is said to have purchased it in the 16th century for a hefty sum, believing it to be the work of Roger Bacon. Rudolph was fascinated by the occult, astrology, and alchemy, and the book seemed to match all three. It's said he passed the manuscript along to various scholars, including John Dee, the English mathematician and occultist who claimed to speak with angels. But even Dee, whose mind dabbled in the mystical and the cryptic, left behind no record of deciphering its contents. The manuscript was eventually housed in a Jesuit library, hidden among other rare books, until Wilfrid Voynich rediscovered it in 1912. In the years that followed, it traveled from hands desperate for answers to minds disciplined by logic, and none could solve its puzzle. Not even William Friedman, the man who broke the Japanese purple cipher in World War II, could crack the Voynich. He spent years trying to decode it and died without success. And yet, people returned to it. Again and again, they examined the looping script, which has now been dubbed Voynichese. It's written left to right, but contains no clear corrections, something highly unusual for a manuscript of its size and era. It's almost as if the scribe never hesitated, never stopped to think. That alone has led some to wonder if it was produced using a method unlike traditional writing, perhaps even dictated, or created using rules known only to its author. The botanical section is filled with drawings of plants that don't exist. Some resemble real flora but are subtly altered, twisted leaves, unnatural roots, odd colorations. Others are completely unrecognizable. This has sparked debates. Were they fantasy plants, representations of forgotten species, or symbolic drawings that require a code to decipher? The astronomical section introduces circular diagrams, zodiac signs, star maps, moons, and suns, but the stars don't match any known constellations. Some pages depict women holding stars, others floating in pools connected by what looks like pipes or tubes. What does this mean? Is it spiritual, medical, alchemical? Some theorists believe the manuscript details a form of women's medicine or fertility practices, especially given the repeated imagery of nude women and strange baths. But the language remains a wall no one can break through. In the pharmaceutical section, there are jars and roots, herbs and symbols, suggesting this was perhaps a medical guide. Some researchers have tried to match the shapes of the illustrated plants to existing medieval herbal manuals, hoping to find a one-to-one comparison. A few matches have been suggested, but nothing conclusive. Others argue that the manuscript must be an encoded alchemical text. In medieval Europe, alchemy wasn't just about turning metals into gold. It was deeply connected to healing, transformation, and spirituality. Could the manuscript be a guide for inner alchemy, for some kind of personal or cosmic transformation? And then, there are those who step away from the scientific and the historical and instead wander into the speculative. Some believe the manuscript is not from Earth at all. The unusual plants, the alien language, the cosmic diagrams, could it be the record of a civilization from another world? Was it left behind by travelers who visited Earth long ago, or a gift meant for those ready to understand? Others point to the possibility of the manuscript being written in glossolalia, language produced during trance or spiritual possession. Could its author have been channeling a higher entity, unaware of what they were writing? That theory, though difficult to prove, explains the fluency of the script and its lack of correction. It also ties the manuscript to otherworldly knowledge, something beyond logic, beyond science. One of the more grounded modern theories is that the Voynich Manuscript is an example of constructed language, much like Tolkien's Elvish or Star Trek's Klingon. Someone in the Middle Ages may have developed an entirely new script and language, complete with its own grammar and syntax, as part of a private intellectual or artistic endeavor. But again, why? For whom? And why make it appear like a functional document filled with meaning? Even in the digital age, where artificial intelligence and supercomputers have been turned toward the manuscript, it remains stubborn. In 2019, a team claimed they had identified Hebrew roots hidden within the text, suggesting the book was encoded using a cipher. But linguistic experts quickly challenged the finding, saying the interpretation relied too much on guesswork. The manuscript rejected the key once again. One of the most compelling aspects of the Voynich manuscript isn't just its unreadability. It's the idea that its mystery may be intentional. Perhaps the book was made to be obscure, a kind of test, or philosophical puzzle. In ancient times, knowledge was often hidden in layers, protected from the unworthy or the unprepared. Could this manuscript be a symbolic gatekeeper of wisdom, one that only the right mind can unlock? Or perhaps the truth is simpler and more tragic, that the book is a hoax created for fame, money, or amusement, that all of its words mean nothing, that its art is mere invention. But then again, who in the 1400s would go to such lengths to fabricate something so complex? And how could they have constructed a fake language that, centuries later, still statistically behaves like a real one? The Voynich manuscript pulls its readers into a spiral. It doesn't just demand analysis, it demands imagination. It asks us to believe that there are still corners of our world that resist being known, and that maybe some mysteries are not meant to be solved. They're meant to be witnessed, to be respected, to be kept alive. The story of the Voynich is not just the story of a book. It's the story of obsession, of human longing for meaning. It's the story of historians, scientists, mystics, and dreamers, all drawn into the same silent conversation. They come with questions. The manuscript offers none of its own, but it listens. It waits. And in its silence, it tells us everything about our need to understand, even when understanding isn't promised. In the modern world, where data floods every corner of our lives, and where almost every question has a digital answer, the Voynich manuscript stands as a quiet defiance. It remains stubborn, opaque, untamed. It's a reminder that not everything can be Googled, not every pattern can be cracked by code, not every question leads to clarity. The manuscript today is housed in a climate-controlled room at Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library. Its pages, once bound tightly, are now treated like fragile treasure. People travel across continents just to see it, to stand in the presence of a mystery that has withstood time, war, science, and obsession. It's not just a book anymore. It's a symbol of how much we still don't know. Despite its eerie silence, the Voynich manuscript speaks in other ways. It speaks to the perseverance of the human spirit. Decade after decade, from government cryptologists to independent researchers, from seasoned historians to curious teenagers online, people have poured their time and hopes into its pages. Not for wealth, not for fame, but for the simple, profound joy of solving something no one else has. And sometimes, that's the point. The chase. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, you might be the one to unlock a door no one else has even seen. The manuscript draws people not because it answers anything, but because it dares you to try. Among the many who have tried was a man named Gordon Rugg. A cognitive scientist, he proposed a controversial idea in the early 2000s that the manuscript could have been created using a technique known as a Cardan grill, a kind of template system that allows a person to generate nonsense text that still looks statistically real. If true, it would mean the entire book could have been made without any real meaning at all, just a mechanical trick of pattern and form. But even that theory doesn't quite satisfy. The manuscript is too fluid, too intricate, too emotionally compelling to feel hollow. If it is meaningless, why does it feel so meaningful? And what of its author? The person, unknown to history, who sat down and began writing this enigmatic text. Who were they? What were they trying to do? Were they laughing to themselves, crafting an elaborate prank? Were they recording truths only they could understand? Were they documenting a system of knowledge, a language, a universe that has since vanished? In the pages, there's a rhythm. Lines flow with confidence, curves and glyphs drawn by a steady hand. Whoever made it knew what they were doing. This wasn't random scribbling. It was a vision poured into vellum and ink. That alone gives the manuscript power. Real or not, it meant something to its creator. And because of that, it now means something to all of us. Every once in a while, someone claims to have cracked the code. A new cipher, a hidden language, a clue in ancient dialects, a secret held in astrology. And yet, with every such claim comes the same result: doubt, disagreement, disproof. The manuscript slips away again, like fog under a lantern. But it's not just the scholars and scientists who are haunted by the Voynich. Artists, poets, filmmakers, and storytellers have also been drawn to its pages. It has appeared in novels, inspired paintings, served as the centerpiece of documentaries. Because beyond its puzzle lies something else: beauty. There's something strangely poetic about a book that speaks to no one and everyone at the same time. In a world obsessed with answers, the Voynich offers a different kind of truth, the kind that lives in mystery, the kind that doesn't need solving to have value. It reminds us that knowledge is not always about knowing, that sometimes the act of wondering is enough. Some believe that the manuscript will eventually be decoded, that someone, somewhere, will find the key, that one day, the symbols will give way to language, the drawings to understanding, that the author will be known and their purpose revealed. If that day comes, the world will celebrate. But something will also be lost, because in solving the Voynich Manuscript, we would end the greatest part of its story, the mystery. It's possible that the manuscript is a forgotten key to ancient wisdom, buried by time. It's also possible that it's nothing at all. But in either case, it has given something rare and powerful to everyone who encounters it: a reason to wonder. Even as science advances, even as technology reaches into places once thought unreachable, the Voynich remains untouched, a small island of unknowing, a fragile rebellion against a world obsessed with certainty. It tells us, in its silence, that the past is deeper than we think, that not all stories are meant to be told in words we understand, that sometimes the most powerful messages come wrapped in mystery, in the undecipherable language of dreams, myth, and memory. So if you ever see it, its curling script, its impossible flowers, its strange women floating through space and water, don't try to read it. Just feel it. Let it speak in the way only the unknown can. Because maybe the Voynich Manuscript was never meant to be read. Maybe it was meant to remind us that wonder itself